Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories. In a rare daytime strike on Iranian targets in Damascus, dozens of missiles penetrate Syria's aerial defense array, killing at least 5 IRGC-backed militants. U.S. President Joe Biden asserts that the United States will respond to Iran's continued aggression against U.S. forces in Syria and elsewhere. Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud insists that the Arabian Kingdom, alongside others in the region, should receive a seat at the table in nuclear negotiations with Iran. In what has been classified as a rare daytime bombardment, surface-to-surface precision-guided missiles struck multiple targets in a suburb of Damascus City in the latest such attack that Syria attributed to Israel. According to Syrian military sources quoted by the regime-run Sana news agency, quote, at 11:17 of Saturday morning, the Israeli enemy launched a number of missiles from the northern side of occupied Palestine, targeting some points in Damascus countryside. The source further claimed that the Syria Army air defenses repelled the missiles and shot down a number of them, while adding that the aggression injured 2 soldiers and caused some material damage. Nevertheless, according to the London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, at least 5 pro-Iranian fighters were killed and several were injured when multiple incoming projectiles destroyed a Hezbollah convoy and Iranian weapons and ammunition heading for Lebanon. While Jerusalem had repeatedly confirmed that it conducts near-weekly attacks on Iranian targets as part of efforts to thwart its military entrenchment in Syria, Lebanon, and elsewhere throughout the region, the IDF spokesperson's unit stopped short from confirming nor denying its alleged responsibility vis-à-vis Saturday's strike in response to TV7's request for comment. Meanwhile, the IDF Northern Command announced that it has commenced with a month of increased operational readiness, which includes an exercise that simulates a multi-arena scenario focused on Israel's northern theater. The purpose of the exercise is said to improve the IDF's defensive and offensive capability in the face of a variety of scenarios while implementing operational plans at all levels in an integrated manner. However, in a written statement, the IDF stressed that the month of exercises is pre-planned as part of the 2021 training program and is scheduled to end on Thursday, November 18th. Separately, it is worth mentioning that on the same day of the alleged Israeli strike on Iranian targets in Syria, Israeli Air Force F-15 fighter jets escorted an American B-1B bomber over Israeli skies towards the Gulf, which the IDF referred to as a joint flight that illustrates the continued strategic cooperation of the Israel Defense Forces with the United States in the area. However, a senior military source told TV7 that alongside an evidence signal to the Iranians, the main intention of the overflight of the multi-purpose strategic bomber, which is capable of carrying nuclear payloads, aims at reassuring regional U.S. allies and partners of Washington's unyielding security-related commitments. Turning to the Italian capital Rome, where U.S. President Joe Biden asserted that the United States will respond to Iran's continued aggression against U.S. forces in Syria and elsewhere, that after an investigation into a strike on a U.S. outpost in Syria's El Tanf region attributed full responsibility to the Islamic Republic of Iran, alongside similar attacks against U.S. installations in Iraq.
With regard to the issue of how we're going to respond to actions taken by them against interests of the United States, whether they're drone strikes or anything else, is we're going to respond, and we're going to continue to respond.
The said response to Iran's orchestrated attacks against U.S. troops in the region follows a U.S. Treasury Department announcement on Friday in which it issued a fresh round of sanctions against entities and individuals involved in an Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps drone program, which U.S. state officials asserted threatens regional stability. In other yet related news, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken leveled a warning to the Islamic Republic that the Biden administration does not rule out a military option if the Ayatollah regime decides to opt out from engaging in diplomacy vis-à-vis its nuclear program. Speaking to Face the Nation, Secretary Blinken further noted that while the United States still believes diplomacy is the best path forward, the Iranians must be prepared to resume negotiations from the point negotiators left off in June.
Well, the Iranians have now said that they're coming back to talks toward the end of November. We'll see if they actually do. That's going to be important. We still believe diplomacy is the best path forward for putting the nuclear program back in the box it had been in under the agreement, the so-called JCPOA. But we were also looking at, as necessary, other options if Iran is not prepared to engage quickly in good faith, to pick up where we left off in June when these talks were interrupted by the change in government in Iran.
The more rigorous wording used against Iran's defined course of action is not restricted to the United States, as the three European parties to the 2015 nuclear agreement, including France, Britain, and Germany, are also evidently losing patience with Tehran, warning that the window for diplomacy is about to close.
Wir setzen natürlich auf eine Rückkehr des Iran an den Verhandlungstisch. Allerdings die Zeit vergeht und die Anreicherungen werden im Iran fortgesetzt. Das beunruhigt uns sehr. Und deshalb war es Zeit, darüber zu sprechen, was man tun kann, damit die Bewaffnung des Iran mit Nuklearwaffen nicht stattfindet.
Meanwhile, in Tehran, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh sought to once again spread a fog on the regime's intentions regarding a resumption of nuclear negotiations, claiming that the Islamic Republic will only return to negotiations if the United States can guarantee that any agreement reached will remain intact under subsequent administrations. In tandem, Khatibzadeh insisted that Europe was also in breach of its commitments, just like the United States under the 2015 nuclear agreement, even though the European Union did not sanction Iran. Rather, European companies merely refused to engage in business in Iran for fear of triggering U.S. sanctions. With that being said, Iran's voiced prerequisites for a return to the negotiating table in Vienna are seemingly disregarded by the European Union, which stressed that it continues to work behind the scenes to revive the talks after a meeting between EU political director Enrique Mora and Iran's chief nuclear negotiator Bagheri Kani.
But I can confirm that there was a useful meeting between Chief Iranian Negotiator, Vice or Deputy Foreign Minister Bagheri, and our chief negotiator when it comes to JCPOA, who is also political director and Deputy Secretary General of the EAS, Enrique Mora. So there was a useful meeting between the two of them 2 days ago, and it helped to identify a way forward to resume the negotiations in Vienna. HRVP, as a JCPOA coordinator together with his team, they remain engaged towards this aim and now are working together with other partners, including Iran and other signatories of the JCPOA, to fix a concrete date as early as possible to reconvene in Vienna.
In related news, while global powers are looking to renegotiate with Iran its nuclear constraints, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia stresses that the countries of the region should be granted a voice.
For us, it's critical that we address the continuing nuclear activities in Iran. We see Iran continuing to breach its obligations, not just to the JCPOA, but even to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And I think also critical is that we address the issue of non-access for IAEA. And those are real threats to regional security and regional stability. We hope that through the talks in Vienna that these can be addressed. And we in the region are the countries that are most directly affected by this threat, and that's why we think we should have a voice. And more important is that we find a path towards addressing conclusively the dangers that a potential military nuclear program in Iran pose to the region and the global community.
The Saudi foreign minister, who spoke to Hartley Gamble of CNBC on the sidelines of the G20 in Rome, went on to confirm reports that Riyadh was holding exploratory talks with Tehran, yet emphasized that no substantive progress has been made.
So we are talking. We in the kingdom are committed to finding a path towards forging understandings with Iran that address regional security and stability in a way that we can all focus on building a prosperous future for our people. So far, these talks have been exploratory in nature. We've had 4 rounds so far. We may have another round. We are working that out. We haven't really reached any conclusive progress, but they have been, I would say, positive enough to allow for further discussion, but nothing concrete as of yet.
In contrast to the statement by the Saudi top diplomat, Iranian officials had previously claimed that talks with Saudi Arabia had made significant progress in recent weeks. Thank you for watching us. As part of TV7 Israel's prayer initiative, I would like to encourage you today to join the team and me here in Jerusalem to lift up Ukraine in prayer for its salvation and peace, alongside prayers for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, in addition to our ongoing prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan wishing you a Shavua Tov u'Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.